All right, today I am joined by the brain warrior, Neal Phalora. This dude's a real deal. So, Neal, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here, Mike. Excited.
All right, so you've been coaching people for a while. Um, you've been also using kind of your experiences, your story, your background to connect with clients. How long have you been doing that? Like, kind of sharing your founder story, if you will.
Yeah, this is probably for a better part of 10 years.
Okay.
So, yeah, because well, before jumping into just completely an entrepreneur journey, I was in corporate America where I found a lot of people were not living their dreams or suffering at the hand of limiting beliefs. And so a lot of my business clients were also my coaching clients because they were unhappy with where they are. Imagine that.
So you go on the road to go sell something or something for corporate, whatever, and then you end up talking about life and you like become like their counselor or their coach, which, I mean, that happens a lot though.
It does. My boss told me to cut that bullshit out. He goes, that won't work in sales. And I had one of the best sales records of our team. So.
Because you were connecting.
Yes. Yes. I still remember one time getting to somebody's why, and it was about that they wanted to take a bicycle ride. She managed 300 people, and that was on a sales sheet. And when I read that in front of 30 other salespeople, it was crickets. They thought I was on something. I was like, that's her real why, right? That's her connection. If she can't get her work done and ride her bike and can reconnect to nature, she's an unhappy person.
Now, how did you transition out of corporate into coaching? You mentioned that some of these folks were your early clients, if you will, maybe even like practice clients, right?
Right.
But how did you kind of make that shift over time?
Well, it fundamentally is that I've always had a lot of childlike qualities, the dreaming, the imagination, the make-believe, all that stuff. And so I just knew that I wanted to live my dreams on a bigger stage and show more people. And it was also the fact that I was missing 80% of my twins' life. They were less than 1 year at the time. And I also wanted to prove to them that you could dream and you could make your dreams come true at any age. I won't say it wasn't a little scary leaving behind a huge corporate umbrella and paycheck, but we did it anyways.
Where did kind of the interest in the brain come from? How did you choose that path, or how did that path kind of find you?
Right. It found me at a really young age. So if anybody, for all of you that are listening, if you can think about your father for a moment and what that means to you in your life, and imagine that father would take you on walks and we would discuss at a very young age, I'm talking like 9, 10 years old, human behavior and being the master of your brain. I remember coming home from a walk and writing that on a piece of paper. I am the master of my brain, only to take 30 years later for me to really understand what the hell that meant, to actualize it. And in the same stroke, that out of nowhere, like stepping on eggshells, that he would punch me in the mouth when he didn't like something that I didn't know was appropriate. So it was living in that dichotomy of those two things where I really found my empathic self and my intuitive self, and the trauma of my parents' relationship, which I despised. And that's why I was sneaking away at 11 years old articles on relationships to go read them in my room.
What? At
Yes.
11? So it's all right. So if I'm understanding this right, you're having like pretty deep father-son conversations with him. It's awesome.
Yes.
And then what? Just flip a switch? He could just blow up on you at any time?
It was the way his father was raised. It's his generation legacy, and that what I found is that he was hiding all kinds of things that he was insecure about, right? And yes, I could never predict. It was like a kind of like a hierarchical bomb that would go off, and I really didn't know when it would go off.
Now, in your work with clients, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who tune in and so on and so forth. What have you seen that's sort of a common thread that you can share with everybody? Like, hey, this is something I've seen in entrepreneurs. This is something I've seen in people trying to reinvent their lives when it comes to their brain or how they see themselves or who they really are, or identity, all that kind of stuff. I'm always interested to learn from other coaches because coaches have a unique perspective. They see probably a lot of similar patterns, and I'm just not aware,
Yes.
So have you seen anything there that's like...
For sure. One overarching theme is that we all have this, is how hard it has to be to get from point A to point B. And for a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of dogma, and there's a red badge of courage that we all wear that says that I have to do it alone, go it alone, and it has to be this hard to actually be successful. And it's a huge limiting belief because you can only self-flagellate so much until you come to a dead stop, right? And you're just no longer working, no longer moving ahead. And
I think it's so important though, because here we are, we're in this age of the solopreneur, right? I just read this article not too long ago about like, I forget what they said exactly, but it was basically like this exodus of the workforce. Post-pandemic life, people are like, I'm not going back to an office. And because we live in such an interconnected world, right, there are more opportunities to quote unquote do what you want and work from wherever you want.
right.
It's like, honestly, the human beings aren't good with choices. Like when we have too many options, we don't really know what we want. We don't know what to do. We get kind of paralyzed. I just see this as a big challenge. I mean, like I faced that. Like, where do I want to live? These decisions are usually made for people.
It's a huge challenge, and you said a really operative thing there. Decisions are made for people. So the other thing that I see that's a blow-away moment for most of my clients is that they come to a stage where they get into this existential crisis where they don't know what they want or what they believe. But imagine that when I start doing the core belief work, when I was doing it on myself, I had a holy shit moment. I'm like, nothing in this box of what I believe is here because I believed it. It's all here because somebody else put it here, society, your father, whatever else. And that's the real trouble, is that if that is the CPU, the operating system, and then the moment that you actually realize that nothing that you believe is actually yours, it's kind of like it's free falling for a moment. It's really troublesome. But if you can get past that stage where you can let that die and go through the grief, that's where people don't pull up. They just keep, because we don't want to feel those negative emotions, we never come to the other side and let that die and come out.
Talk to me a little bit about that. So there's a box, not literally, of course, but it's symbolic of things that we believe, and then you walk through those things with people, and then they realize, I never put that in that box.
Right.
Is that kind of...
Right.
Okay, elaborate a little. I'm fascinated by this.
So we start to talk about what else is true. This is a game I kind of like to play with my clients. What else is true? What else is true? Keep asking them, because they only have certain fundamental things that are true. And what the other part of this is, it doesn't really matter what is what the truth is, capital T. It only matters what you're trying to prove. And so how we start to discover this box is we start to see the stories that are played. Because the stories in your head are actually literally neurons that are synapsed together, and their job is to keep seeking more evidence of the same. Whether that serves you or not, most often it doesn't, because most of our thoughts are negative.
It's just reinforcing the connections that are already there.
And they are literally fighting for neural growth factor in your brain for these loops. I'm not good enough. My dad never really liked me. My family was always poor. Money doesn't really have a place in my life. Whatever your limiting beliefs are.
It's finding evidence to reinforce those.
Right, and the story just keeps building. So as it's an awareness piece, and really what I look at it is it's this monolith. And all we have to do is make the one crack in it. I just don't know in the process. I just am persistent with the client to keep opening, reshowing, awareness, and something will crack it. And once that cracks, that mountain becomes a molehill in the rearview mirror. And they're like, I cannot believe that I struggled this much for 0.5 millimeter of dirt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important because having been my own boss for all these years, like wearing all of these different hats, visionary, integrator, creator, accountant, manager, salesperson, marketer, you name it, a connector, right, networker. It's sort of like, who am I? Like, who am I today? And things get hard. And then you're like, am I good enough to make it? Can I do this? An author, can I do this? Speaker, can I do that? Right. When people kind of tap what you said, crack this monolith, does it spill over into every area of their life, or do you find that people are like, hey, Neal, I'm really good at business. I'm really good at relationships in business. I'm just not good at romantic relationships or with my kids. Do you ever see that disparity?
Yes, absolutely.
And is that true, or is it much deeper than that?
I see the disparity. I saw it in sales a lot. There were people that were massively good at forming relationships with clients, their home life was a wreck, right? So that it doesn't necessarily marry up. Now, what I do know is that there are certain techniques as we do them, because the body experiences the trauma over and over again. The dog that's going to eat you out here is in your mind is the same dog that may or may not exist in the 3D reality, right? And so, but as people start to do the job of giving yourself positive reinforcements in the mind's eye, that starts to actually physically prune away other belief systems. If we're experiential beings, Mike, then who we are at this point is come through experience. So the only way to really transit that, and that's why weekend workshops and the warrior stuff doesn't work, is that you have to have a set of experiences to change that and rewire it to a different emotion. And for most people, they're not doing the deep work, and adults are really emotionally constipated, so they don't have any. Sorry for the graphic image.
That's good. That's actually that's right too.
They don't have the understanding of how to use emotions, because we're so clamped down to fire a new reality or new story in their head.
Yeah, dude, that's so good. That's so good. Dude, I could talk to you for hours on this stuff. Where can people find more of your content? Because, I mean, you're brilliant. I've seen your work online. Just tell people where they can find it.
Sure, absolutely. So Instagram is The Brain Warrior, or my website is thebrainwarrior.com.
Sweet, dude. Thanks for joining us today.
Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks.
Thank you.